Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Casey Labonte, and I'm the Food as Medicine Program Coordinator with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. Welcome to our panel discussion today on food as medicine with a focus on business approaches. We'd love to start with some introductions. And Brandon, why don't you go first? Could you tell us who you are and why you're here?
Good afternoon. Thanks for the invite. My name is Brandon Bro. I'm the owner operator of Cockeyed Farms. We are the first elderberry farm in the state of Louisiana, and that came about the name and the farm itself. I was previously a Chief Warrant Officer 3 in the United States Army, flying scout attack helicopters, and in 2012. Was permanently grounded from flying due to what was eventually diagnosed as Gulf War illness. So I am the new Agent Orange, and primarily with cluster headaches, but a whole array of health issues. So obviously, I started off as just a consumer, transitioned into farming, and then developed a commercial kitchen, which I'm actually sitting in right now. So we're a certified food and beverage manufacturing facility. And then through that knowledge, are now, I guess, becoming an educator on all things and all the processes of where I started and where I'm at now, and the need definitely for it. And I'm in Folsom, Louisiana, for, I guess, topography sake, and giving you a regional area here. So we're an hour north of New Orleans, so way down south.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. And Trevor, if you could introduce yourself next.
Trevor Lane, Washington State University. I am in community and economic development. Agritourism is my expertise, and I bring together small business ecosystems. And I work a lot in the tech adoption space, but food as medicine is a big part of agritourism, to bring people to farms and ranches for the purpose of education, and sometimes even entertainment, to attract people to understanding the healthy benefits. I work a lot with very rural and remote and tribal communities to help them solve very complex problems. And agritourism is often a lens that works quite a bit.
Thank you. And Lauren?
Hi, my name is Lauren Bro. I am passionate about this approach of food as medicine. I come to it from a little bit of a different perspective. I am an educator. I'm also an advocate within the agriculture industry as well as the educational industry. I'm a first generation farmer. I also homeschool my children, and I homestead here at our farm. We are building a legacy of changing perspective to food as fuel and food as medicine. Just definitely trying to instill those values in our children so that we can raise up the next generation to continue the sustainability for the planet and for the community. I'm also a caregiver to my medically retired husband. So fueling his body as he heals is very important to me. I'm also the president of Louisiana Farmer Veteran Coalition. I'm passionate about the regeneration of people through agriculture, specifically our veterans who are returning home after serving our country. I enjoy watching and helping people heal as they get their hands dirty. I'm also a charter board member for Louisiana Women in Agriculture. So I'm passionate about education in agriculture and also about female farmers finding their voice.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Debbie.
Yes, I'm parked under a tree. It's very nice. I am a kind of a volunteer management person for Lost River Co-op and Cafe, which is a food co-op in a very rural, poor community where food co-ops usually aren't. And about 5 years ago, we started some programs where we aggregate food and distribute them in a variety of ways. Food as Medicine is one of those programs. We do an aggregated CSA, and we've started to do some offsite farm stands. So we do a lot of business with local farmers. I'm retired, but my husband says we failed retirement for about 4 times. So yeah, it's been fun. That's all.
Great. Happy to have all of you here. Thank you so much for joining us today. So our first official question is, can you describe what food as medicine means to you? And if any of you happen to prepare images and you'd like to share your screen, then I've enabled screen sharing. If you don't have that ready, no worries at all. But Lauren, we would love to hear from you first. What does food as medicine mean to you?
So again, I think that the shift in perspective needs to return to our roots. I truly believe that food is fuel, and if you can help people to change their mindset and their understanding that food does not come from the grocery store, then they become responsible for their own sustainability, and that's something that is very important to me. I think that we will be able to utilize food as medicine when we know where it comes from and how it's produced and who's producing it. And the best way to do that is to be the person who's doing that, whether it's a backyard garden or an herb, flower bed, or feeding pollinators and bees. I just think that taking personal ownership of the food you consume definitely helps change your perspective to see it as fuel and as medicine. I think it's important to own your health. I think that starts with a lot of personal responsibilities and personal choices. And I think that advocating for that will help to raise awareness and also help change people's perspective. And then definitely always trying to impact that next generation to grow new farmers with a responsible mindset of affecting change. I'm morbidly obese. What can I do to fix that beyond drinking more water, moving my body? What am I putting into my body to help myself heal from the inside out? And I think that impact starts with our kids. I think that's a very important reason to change the way that we're doing things and return to the perspective that we were, for years and years and years. That's how everyone operated. I think that that's important for us to start with and then be able to model that for future generations.
Awesome. Thank you.
So for me, as the father of an enrolled Cherokee citizen, we've come to learn through their cultural and heritage center that gut biomes are very important, and the crops that we grow are even more important. And there's an emergence of land-grant universities like Washington State University, Oklahoma State University, that is taking on health and nutrition through multidisciplinary studies between the medical colleges and the ag colleges, actually. And they are finding ways to cross-translate those different courses out of the ag school and into the medical college for health and nutrition purposes. So as we look to the future, we think about, like Lauren was saying, the things we put into our body, how we move our bodies. There's a bigger picture with how that moves with the earth as well. And we're seeing a picture where tribes are ready to lead. And what I mean by that is a lot of times we have a tendency to treat tribes like an exercise in diversity. And as sovereign nations, that's not the case. It's an economic and political case. And as we look to the future, it's the equivalent of dealing with the King of England, or, the ambassador to France, or the president of Mexico. When we talk to tribes, there is a deeper, richer conversation, and they have knowledge, hundreds of thousands of years old in some cases, that they are ready to share. And we have reached a point where tribes have cracked the code on some things with regenerative agriculture, forestry, farming, and they're more willing now to share. And I have come to learn in the last, I'd say, 5 years, colonialism and westward expansion plays a very strong role in this conversation around food as medicine. And when we take on the role and responsibility of being reciprocal in this conversation, tribes may be slow to the table, but food as medicine is becoming more and more important as diabetes and other things ravages all of our communities, but especially our Native American communities. And so for me, at the end of the day, food as medicine, we have a, through my very selfishly agritourism lens, have an opportunity to attract people to the conversation in a way that's never really been done before. And we've done a few presentations with our medical college that you can Google food as medicine and agritourism, and it pops up in the top 10 every time. So if people get a chance to check that out, that's been a great workshop that's available on YouTube as well.
Cool. We'll definitely check that out. Thank you. And Brandon, whenever you're ready.
So this one's an easy one for me. I'm living proof that food is medicine. In my medical diagnosis, and unknown, I guess, diagnosis over the years, I've been a 12-year professional patient. The VA had me up to 14 prescription meds a day, and my resting heart rate was 133 beats a minute. And the medication was not working, and obviously they were trying to cause a heart attack and an expedited death. And so it was our decision as a family to go to the KISS model, keep it simple, stupid. Let's remove all the fluff, and we bought a farm. And our mantra as a family and a married couple has always been trying to find an equilibrium and always improving mind, body, spirit, and then finances got added to that. And so just farming in general, not only is food being the actual medicine, it was the number one improvement, this most significant improvement in my overall health, the inflammation, wellness, having an autoimmune disease, having all these unknown issues, but yet never getting COVID. We don't get sick. I have my cluster headaches. I have obviously full body pains and all the crazy Gulf War rashes and stuff like that. But it's again, over the 12 years of being cycled through all these different doctors, and then having to log and write down what individual foods did to me, and really starting to see, once we went on an all organic diet, really pure food. If you go out to eat at someplace else, once you get inside that cycle of eating clean, you taste the preservatives, you taste the chemicals and the outside influence that's in that food, and then I directly feel it. I have a direct physical reaction from it, and it's extremely interesting from the COVID and now the overall feel of people shifting from, we need doctors, we need traditional medicine, and you can watch Facebook, social media, TikTok, TV, the transition towards this holistic and natural wellness is being pushed. And so you're seeing grounding sheets and grounding with the earth's energy, and it all goes back to paying attention to how plants grow. And even through the USDA, if you were to get a high tunnel greenhouse, they don't allow you to do hydroponics, because we're still trying to figure out the mystery of the soil. And so it's going back for that for ourselves. It's what God intended. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And Debbie.
Yes, I had 3 visuals, which I can't share with you, but I do remember them. The first one was a copy of our mission statement from Lost River when we first started. It has 2 parts. The first part is that we want to increase the access to local healthy food to consumers at fair value. That's still something that overrides a lot of what we do. The second part, though, was important as we did food and medicine, economic well-being of producers. So we didn't really start our food as medicine, or what we called nutrition prescriptions back then, for totally altruistic reasons. We were starting it as a referral service to our independent health clinic, who were a clear partner in this, but we also saw it as a way of increasing an increased distribution path for our local farmers. Second word that we really love to use is abundance, because so much of our food system is based on scarcity. And we are part of Indiana that we're not in the production soybean cornfield area as much. We are surrounded by Hoosier National Forest and marginal farmland. So we have a huge Amish population. And we have very close relationships with about 30 families, 8 core families, and those are our major suppliers. And so we have a picture that I was going to share of my husband, who goes and picks up the produce on Wednesdays, and he is totally engulfed in stacks and stacks of crates filled with lovely green forestry kind of things, leaves and stuff. So we know that they can grow more, which means that we can gather more, distribute more, and people can eat more. And that's kind of the foundation that we operate on. And the third word that we use a lot is community. I really believe that if we eat together, it solves a ton of problems. And even from the very beginning, the first year, we had it set up so that participants could talk to each other, a Facebook group. It was during COVID, Facebook group and some other digital stuff, so they could post the pictures of the meals they made and the meals they shared with their families, and also to share their food stories. And so every time we look for a grant or look for another rendition of this, we make sure we try to have that community part in there, because I think it keeps.
Great. Thank you, Debbie, and thank all of you. Thank you so much for those responses. I think it really helps to contextualize where each of us are coming from when we're talking about food as medicine, because I know that there are a lot of different ways of understanding that term. So again, thank you for that. I'd love to open it up now for a few minutes to have some time for you each to talk with each other about what you all just shared. Any questions or comments or supports that you have for one another. We have a few minutes for that now.
I'm curious
Oh,
about the YouTube, about the YouTube clip that you mentioned. If you could share that again, or maybe share it in the chat.
I will look it up and drop it in here in just a second. And what I was going to ask the group is kind of in that vein is, what is your community, your state? I know some states don't have tribal reservations or tribal connections, but I'm just curious if there's a tribal connection in your communities or your states with food as medicine.
How do we find that out? Like how do we determine that?
Typically there's like a land grant university that has a relationship with a tribe. The land grant universities typically are like Oklahoma State, Washington State. They come with the word state in the middle of it, but not always. And I'm not familiar enough with all 320 plus land grants to really know, but that's where I would start. I would also look to see if you have a tribal commerce department. Some states have departments of commerce that are very specific to tribes. I know Oklahoma has their own individual Native American Department of Commerce that's separate from the states. But that's usually where I tell people to start.
And Laura,
Okay.
we have a liaison through Louisiana Women in Agriculture that tried to be on the board this year, but could not be because it was her first time as part or as a member. But remember, that's a perfect liaison within the tribe.
Yes. So the Tunica Biloxi tribe was instrumental in developing a economic development. It's a conference, and she asked us to attend, and we actually will have a member of Louisiana Women in Agriculture there, just to support the conference, but then also to share about our organization with some of the ladies that may or may not be interested in becoming members. So I have been in touch with her, and I'm curious. I'm going to bounce this off of her as well. I do have friends that are. I mean, I'm originally from Terrebonne Parish, which is far down South Louisiana. But all like the there's so many different
And different, yeah, tribal.
like representatives of different tribes down there. So yeah, I just need to dip my toes in this. So I'm excited. This is a lot of good information for me too. So thank you.
I will mention this in Indiana, Southern Indiana, there are lots of us who have land, may or may not be farming it, and we have no one to pass it to. What happens to our land that we care a great deal about? One couple are farming really extensively, but in a holistic way, and they just deeded their land to one of the tribal colleges who have farms, who has a farm. I think it's in North Dakota. I might be wrong, but North or South Dakota. And so they have come here often as they've made these arrangements. So we'll probably be having some new farmers in the area.
Awesome.
That's exciting. Yeah.
That's great.
That warms my soul to hear. And I just want to add real quickly that land acknowledgement and land givebacks are becoming more and more of a thing. I'm a product of a lack of farm succession planning, and nobody bothered asking the grandkids or the cousins if any of us wanted it. And as a result, there's now housing developments and a refinery and other things that sit on our property. But more and more people are looking to the tribes for that leadership and that acquisition. And I encourage people that if they don't have a pathway, to find a tribe that would be ready to take that back. And land givebacks are becoming more and more, I wouldn't say common, but known.
Yeah, definitely. Great questions for the first round, everybody. This is going to be a good conversation. COVID was mentioned a couple of times in the answer to into that question, which leads us beautifully into the next one, which is how has the COVID-19 pandemic influenced the integration of food as medicine principles into your work? And Trevor, if you are ready, we would love to start with you.
COVID really exacerbated our issues with the food chain. And in our remote communities, our tribal communities, we saw rather rapidly the trucks quit running. And when the trucks quit running, people have to go in search of food, and that put tribal members and tribal elders in harm's way. And we actually saw a vast increase in deaths among the tribes, to the point where it was really scary for some nations. But as we think about, health and medicine, local food is extremely important. And we're starting to see eat local first become more and more of a concept as we think about food as medicine and access to fresh, healthy, locally nutritionally dense foods that you don't get in the grocery store, because they have to pick them early and they have to transport them and store them. So a lot of the nutrition that's dense in these foods is not always there. And so COVID really exacerbated this problem, this challenge, and it's really brought it to the forefront of a lot of local, rural, and tribal communities.
Thank you. Debbie, you're next.
Okay. We had planned our very, very first food as medicine program. We had about 60 participants. We had this grand plan of presenting, using the Cooking Matters curriculum, using local cooks. We had a local nutritionist with programming. And it was all centered around communal eating, that we'd have meals together. And then this was going to launch in March when COVID hit. So we quickly had to adapt and put everything online. So that is one of the things that's made this search for different ways to do community. We're really solid that participants in food as medicine programs, if we can get them to do multiple programs, if we can extend their stay in a program, if we can expand their commitment to doing exercise or eating together or different community kind of activities, then it can become an actual habit. So we've had energy put to that. We just had to become very creative with the COVID challenges. We also changed our curriculum at that time, and this was an important piece. We realized we did not want to be in the curriculum business, but we partnered with our land grant university, Purdue, Extension, which has extension offices in every county. And that has proven to be incredibly good. We did not have a great relationship with them beforehand. I mean, we just did not have a relationship. But now they are really true partners, and we're finding funding together. We're designing some special senior programs with different recipes together. So it just feels like the sky's the limit. And that whole emphasis on local food, I was always there, but it really, more people were convinced of that they would trade things to have a sustainable local supply.
Well,
Great.
the
Go
COVID
ahead.
pandemic for Cockeyed Farms and for my farm, being the first elderberry farm, we forecasted the COVID pandemic and understanding, knowing that food was going to be, the antibiotics we're eventually going to build up an immunity to, and that's the direction we're going based on them being served like Tic Tacs. So we knew it was something that was coming. We knew that the food was basically fluff, and had zero nutrient principles about it. So the influence, obviously, it justified our practice of being organic and what we like to call beyond organic farmers. Our goal is to pack again and make our crops the most nutrient dense possible. And so we focus on food, and especially elderberry. Is people don't realize 99% of all elderberry products come from Europe, and they're coming dehydrated. And then people here are just making elderberry syrup. They're adding water to it. They don't know what they're getting. They're selling it as a supplement. They're able to make any claims whatsoever. And our push again was, food is, we focus on it being an actual food rather than a supplement. So we are one of the only elderberry companies out there that actually sell our product as a food and beverage ingredient. So rather than thinking of it as medicine, as something you're supposed to take out of your medicine cabinet when you get sick, we promote this is a simple way to, we say salt, pepper, and elderberry. It's an easy way to elevate anything you're eating or drinking. And rather than waiting to be sick, why not eat to be well, eat to stay healthy, eat to enrich, our bodies. So that's the primary thing. And then it boosted what our biggest fear was, is educating people on what elderberry was, and pushing people. It was our practice based on our own needs that we really needed to eat healthier and look better. But COVID obviously it accelerated our marketing in a way of people automatically looking for natural products, whole foods, that will enrich their bodies. So.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So for us, being homebound really forced us to just kind of dig in to the ground. We started a garden. We got all of our we got our apiary set up. We got into our orchards and started really getting dirty, and pruning things back, and just getting just enjoying. It's become a process to prepare for harvest season, but we moved here in December of 2019. So our very first blueberry season was during COVID. And so we didn't know what to expect. We have this massive orchard. So our family was out there, our kids, as homeschoolers, we closed our textbooks and we got out into the orchard and into the garden and into the apiary. And we started working with the ground, with the land, with what we were given. And it was a beautiful time for us. It really was. It solidified the fact that we needed to know where our food came from. We had more time. We were already living a very holistic life, but we had more time to dig into food preparation 3 times a day, different things like that. Someone mentioned earlier the food pictures and sharing food within community. That became a big topic, just because if I'm going to cook this much, I'm going to make it pretty and I'm going to share this recipe. But it also opened us up to agritourism because we had an opportunity to be able to host people at our home in a very sunshine filled blueberry orchard where they could socially distance if they wanted to, or they could be right on top of each other if they wanted to. We would give people the option to just kind of wave from the window or go out there and really enjoy an opportunity to host them. So the COVID-19 for us, again, opened our eyes to the opportunity of agritourism, being able to share a lot of our holistic mindset and perspective, you know, helping educate people on how food can be fuel, and then sharing what we were learning and sharing that with our community. That was the big plus for us for COVID, because we were here and we were we just really enjoyed digging into it. I think that if I had to pinpoint a day and time when we became farmers, it would be that spring of 2020, even though we had started our farm 3 years before in a previous place. We had just moved here and we were starting all over again, and watching my kids get into it too was a lot of fun.
Great. Thank you so much. Would love to open it up to all of you to ask questions of each other again if you have any, or comments, supports.
And just to be clear, we have an American elderberry orchard, a blueberry orchard, an apiary, and a commercial kitchen. So we've tried to diversify, and then it's all worked well together to create a shelf-stable medicinal food, so to speak. So just to clarify.
And it really did start with Brandon's health struggles. And we jumped on the holistic wagon because we had to detoxify his body. And that was when we realized that we really needed to return to our food system and how we were fueling his body, and being able to change a lot of that, beginning with our perspective, is really genuinely what I truly believe healed him.
And going back to the actual question, how did COVID-19 influence the integration principles into your work? Well, Lauren, because of COVID-19, literally our first meeting trying to form the Louisiana Farmer Veteran Coalition was the announcement of COVID-19 and the lockdown.
It was the same.
Yeah. So it became her work of trying to basically give people an education and an optional form of employment, really, for a lot of people that were without work. So I continue to show people that during that whole time we didn't miss a beat because it was all done in house. I think we're ready to move on. If you're frozen, are we frozen? No.
Anybody else? All right. Sounds good. Thank you all for that. So our next question is about crisis again, but about changing weather patterns. And we're wondering how changing weather in your area or changing weather patterns in general have contributed or have influenced the integration of food as medicine principles into your work. So similar question as before, but with weather instead of COVID. And Debbie, we would love to hear from you first.
Okay. When we first started our first year or two, our food as medicine programs kind of existed during growing season with a real emphasis on local produce. In the last couple years, they've really become year round. So it really means you broaden it, and sometimes you have to put cans of beans in there and stuff. We're really struggling with that. We just went to a conference last week and that was a topic. How do you keep doing that? So one of the ways that we do that is process food. We buy when it's abundant, and we freeze and process in a small way. We aren't canning jams or anything yet, but we are freezing. We started freezing our strawberry and rhubarb last week. And again, that's a sense of abundance. We could freeze everything we get our hands on and sell it or use it or distribute it throughout the year. What we're seeing climate wise, I mean, that's real. You can't predict when things are going to happen. This season, it started really early, and we just were not ready to catch or prepare or distribute strawberries. And so then we geared up, and now the strawberries lasted about a week and a half, and now they're gone. So it's kind of maddening, but I think that's the way of life. How do we stay nimble and catch what we can and keep preserving what we can? I'm going to say this one more thing. We've just written a grant that makes sense to all of us. Right now, most of our people are either clinic referrals or general public who come to the programs, but we wrote a grant about how to take food as medicine programs to our recovery centers, which right now are very active and very organized. So one of the residential recovery centers, the women there last week started becoming our processing labor. And what we really want to do is set up an outside processing plant, very small scale, on their property, since they're residential folks, and that could become their little business. So I'm just trying to figure out ways that we can get a little better at catching things when they are available.
Thank you.
So for me in Washington State, I work in quite a few mountainous communities, and we have found that microclimates are greatly impacted by weather change, weather patterns. Our growing season is a lot shorter because of the elevation. And so we've been using greenhouses and greenhouse technology to create agritourism opportunities that bring people in to tour the facilities. One of the unique things that we did was we leveraged digital assets like Bitcoin miners, server farms to heat a greenhouse. So we paid for energy once, and then we recycled it, repurposed it, and reused it through an earth battery. So as the temperatures dropped over the night, the battery released the energy, and we were able to grow tomatoes in the middle of the winter through an Arctic blast that reached -44 wind chills. I think it was -22 actual temperatures, but the food survived, it did well. And the reason that's important is we also leveraged some, I believe it's Navajo technology, where we used terraform terracotta potting plants. And very efficiently, we didn't have irrigation, we didn't have a water supply, so we had to import the water, and then we would fill these pots up, and they would release the water into the soil as it was needed to grow the food. And so we developed several efficiencies because of the weather pattern changes and the microclimate environments that we're in. We're having to experiment using technologies, some of them as old as hundreds of thousands of years. Some are brand new because we were also using broadband and other forms of energy to pull down temperatures, both internally as well as externally, so that we could monitor everything. So using old technologies alongside new technologies, we've proven that you can grow food in many different ways through the winter. And these weather patterns are the reason that's important is these weather pattern changes are causing droughts and wildfires. So we're having to rethink, how we grow food, where we locate the greenhouses, how we build fire lines around them, how you manage the vegetation. So there's a bigger, broader impacting our rural and tribal communities in ways that we never really thought about. And we get there through the greenhouse technologies and precision ag.
Thank you. It's really interesting.
I believe Lauren's next.
Yeah, Lauren, if you're ready.
Okay. So I think that again, coming at this from an educator or an advocate point of view, I just really try to encourage people, everyone I know, everyone that I come into contact with, to take personal responsibility for whatever they have, whether it's a small pot that they can grow some type of herb in, or it's a flower garden that'll feed pollinators. I think that people, especially here in South Louisiana, have this misconception that unless you own 1,000 acres and you can farm big ag, that you cannot be involved in agriculture. And that's a fallacy, 100%. That is not true. And obviously certain areas are built differently, and the resources that are available to you will sometimes try to discourage you because they have no working knowledge of what you want to do, and they'll tell you that it's impossible, and it's not. And so that's really what I try to encourage people with, is that if you can start with the smallest step in the right direction. If you can't grow massive garden, then plant your flowers, plant your flower bed, plant herbs, then allow them to bolt, feed your pollinators. If you can get a honeybee hive, if you can put a hive in your backyard or on someone else's property, and you can educate yourself about that, then do that. Make smaller choices that you can take personal responsibility for. Maybe don't spray Roundup around because it will kill the bees, just different things like that. It's a different perspective. And it's really just, in my opinion, from my perspective, is about equipping people to take personal responsibility. And then obviously the resources that are available to you, use them, but definitely taking personal responsibility and not saying, okay, well, the world's, we had a hurricane and everything's, disaster, and we're just going to sit here and wait for assistance. Put your boots on and go help your neighbor, be part of a community, be interactive, be proactive, learn how to respond instead of react, and really just take personal responsibility for the little things that you can do. Obviously, I can't change weather patterns personally, but I can do things that will help how I respond to them instead of reacting to them. And that's really that's just something that changes with your perspective too. I think it's all about changing people's perspective and mindset.
Cool. Thank you. And Brandon, believe you're next.
So I understand how changing weather patterns influence the integration into my work. Well, we as an organic farm, I initially cleared forest to make farmland, and tung oil was invasive and all over this area. And if you're not familiar, it was used for paints and paint thinners, but it's fatal to ingest for humans. So I did not want to spray any type of herbicide and do anything with it. So I landscape fabriced 1.5 acres completely and totally, and burned small holes to integrate my elderberry orchard in there with some mulch. With the increased heat that we have in Louisiana, I took a thermal gun and measured the temperature on that landscape fabric during the summer, and it was 156 degrees on the landscape fabric and 120 something degrees on the actual mulch. So the changing weather patterns are definitely influencing. Now I'm having to bring in an enormous amount of organic matter to pile up and do windrows basically within my crops to help cool the root systems. Also trying to use, if the drought we had last year, 4 months worth of no rain turns you into, okay, now we've really got to upgrade our irrigation. So before, where I had standard drip irrigation, the elderberry standard drip irrigation, and the blueberries, I had to go back and I have actually doubled my lines, one on either side of the actual trees, to help keep up with the changing weather. Here in Louisiana as well, when I put that landscape fabric down, I actually overlapped my seams in a specific way for the prevailing winds, so that if we were to have a hurricane, my landscape fabric wouldn't be ripped up. So I used that in a specific technique. And then coming from an aviation background, the use of drones to actually do topical applications of foliar feeding is super enticing. It's unbelievably expensive right now. To get a system, and starts around $20,000 and goes on up. But you know, our expenses exploded. Everything exploded. So trying to find, we found an organic quail farm, and I took that quail litter. You had like 250 gallons worth of quail poop every week, and I was trying to make basically a quail poop tea. And so we're finding out ways that if Mother Nature is not going to cooperate and give us the rain we need, give us the nutrients we need, we're going to utilize obviously Mother Nature and do it by hand. And we're figuring out a way to do it through technology.
Thank you all. Those are very interesting responses, and I think very related in more ways than maybe we would have expected at the beginning. So thank you all for that. We've got a few minutes again to talk with each other about what you all just shared. If anybody has any questions or comments or supports.
I'll just say we'll trade you, Trevor, for your negative 22 degrees.
I hate the.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. That's crazy. I do think too, though, I mentioned specifically the hurricanes, and it kind of goes back to what Debbie was talking about with the community approach. And that is, if you have a changing weather pattern that's adversely affected you, it's affected the rest of the people in your community too. So just remember that we all belong to each other, you know, and just really, you know, I use the adage all the time that you have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you assist someone else with that. And, you know, that's just always kind of been our MO after every hurricane is we get our house set and everything set to be able to host people that need to get away or to evacuate or anything else. And then we leave. I stay and I cook, and he goes and straps gas on and goes and brings fuel and goes and helps patch roofs and different things like that. Just always to remember that if there's a wildfire, if there's a drought, if there's anything like that, anything that you're able to do for yourself, handle that and then share that with your neighbor.
All right. Thank you all. Trevor and Brandon both mentioned combining old and new technologies in response to changing weather patterns. And that concept is a big reason of why we're all here today to talk about the concept of two-eyed seeing, which is what Mi'kmaq elder Albert Marshall uses to conceptualize the coexistence of Indigenous and Western ways of knowing and to recognize the strengths of those approaches individually and in combination. And so we would next like to talk about how each of you utilize that approach within your work as food as medicine. And Brandon, if you would like to go first, that'd be great.
I keep looking down because I actually wrote down all this stuff ahead of time because my brain is fried 99% of the time, thus the name Cockeyed Farmer. But so holistic medicine obviously has been utilized for forever. And we see it as the future of medicine. Growing using natural organic practices, Mother Nature knows all. So, you know, looking at a traditional farm and seeing the dead earth, seeing, you know, that only the soybean is growing and there's nothing else out there. You know, and then we're calling things weeds, and the cattlemen out here are stating we got to spray this herbicide to get rid of this specific weed. And we're changing the definition of what an actual weed is, because people are actually taking that time to figure out that the dandelion is not a weed. It's actually got significant medicinal value. I'm outside weed eating right now, and I'm staring at my elderberry orchard, basically shaking my head back and forth that I'm upset that is overgrown with something other than elderberry. But at the same time, I'm looking at it going, well, I wanted to diversify. I wanted to grow other medicinal items. You know, it's been provided for me. It's growing significantly throughout the orchards. The two-eyed seeing. So again, using technology for us to be able to grow fresh old world stuff. So now we're going back. We're doing these heritage and original style seeds, but we're using technology and like behind me in here, we freeze dry our blueberries and our elderberry. And use that so that we can capture. So freeze drying removes 99% of the moisture, retains 98% of the nutritional efficacy of something, and can be stored for up to 25 years. So that is absolutely what I'm infatuated with right now, because we have a very perishable fruit, a very short time frame, a 6-week to 8-week window. And then through our honey, we figured out why we're berry farmers using raw honey as our natural preservative. So we freeze dry our blueberry and our elderberry, turn it into a powder, and infuse it into our honey and cream it. And so now it's shelf stable indefinitely and retains the 98% nutritional efficacy. So that combination of, you know, again, I've got a great relationship with the Amish Mennonites in Missouri. Missouri is the hub of the elderberry community, and I've got them freeze drying now, but they're already certified organic and beyond organic. Yeah, completely lost my train of thought, and I think I'm almost out of town anyway. So
Seems like the train arrived where it meant to go. That was great. Yeah. Debbie, you are up next.
Yeah, this is not a topic that I could put a lot of words to, but we do really rely on our Amish communities. We have 3 very thriving communities, and they're different. They're simplistic. They're not out there growing healthy food, but they do like to sell food. They're a cash economy for sure, and they can produce a lot. And our core families are totally curious about what would you want to eat and what do you want me to grow and so forth. Like fennel, they've started growing fennel for us, but they would never eat fennel. So it's kind of a weird situation. We coexist, and I think it's beneficial. But is it clean? They're not organic farmers by any means, but how clean is the food? And so we really had to kind of deal with the food safety issue, at least put some words to it. And our Purdue Extension office, well, many people, what they demand is that they go to some state webinar or some kind of meeting where they take a day-long class and then they get certified and there's a signature. Well, they would not do any of those things for a variety of reasons. And so our Purdue Extension officer was wonderful. And she said, let me rewrite the lesson to be totally in an Amish point of view. And so she wrote it out, pictures, and simplified in a way, but made it very specific to them without all the state jargon. And then she and our coordinator went out one-on-one to about the core 8 families, and they were fine. They had a great conversation one-on-one, signed the form. We could vouch that, yep, they were certified and life would go on. But they will, they're very curious as to what our concerns and what our requirements are. And likewise, we really have a strong relationship with those core families.
Thank you, Debbie. Lauren, you are next.
Okay, two-eyed seeing. Again, I utilize this approach from an educational standpoint. But my personal perspective is that we've become a society that is engrossed and obsessed with instant gratification. And I think that that is what's made us sick. I think that's what's made us um, ill mentally and physically and emotionally. And I think that um, kind of changing the whole instant gratification obsession and returning, it's always crazy when the old ways become new, right? Because they come back because they worked for so long. And so there is something really special about using my phone to pull up a sourdough bread recipe and a tutorial, right, on how to knead bread. I was never taught that. I didn't have a mom or a grandma who did that. My mom had a bread maker, but I didn't want to do that, right? Like I wanted to return to the old way. The only way that I could do that was with my technology. So I think that that is, I think it's an interesting perspective. It's also one that I like to challenge my kids with. Look, why are you cranky? Why are you tired? Did you get enough sun? Are you drinking enough water? Like, have you spent entirely too much time on a screen? Go outside and run. I mean, just different things like that where you try to change their perspective. And a lot of it is breaking the societal norms that we've become accustomed to, that we demanded for so long. Instant gratification was a big one. I want to be able to go to the grocery store and pick up a loaf of bread. Well, now I do that, and it's full of so much stuff that tastes like, but I'm completely and totally capable and equipped to do this myself. And so teaching my kids and the other people that I have, an influence with, to just kind of think for themselves, return to some of our traditional ways of doing things, because I think that that is what sustained generations for as long as they did many, many years ago. There wasn't child obesity or diabetes or heart problems or attention deficit issues or learning challenges or anything like that. That wasn't evident years ago. And we've brought a lot of that on ourselves.
Thank you, Lauren. And Trevor.
So as I try to raise my son the best I can to embrace his duality as an enrolled Cherokee citizen who's mostly European, it's been challenging. Though those of us that are older, we all know what the woes are. So how do we teach people where the win is? And what I have found around this food is medicine, two-eyed seeing, helping my son deal with his duality, it's finding quality of life. That's the one thing that everybody can agree upon. And for every community, quality of life is different. In some of the communities I work with, broadband is what matters to get closer towards precision ag and data-driven decisions around food and local food. But really, at the end of the day, two-eyed seeing is about demonstrating deference to our tribal partners. And what I mean by that, I go back to my introduction where I said, this is not an exercise in diversity. It's a first look to our First Nations to go, what do you all propose? Where would you like to go? It's not us coming in going, hey, I have this idea. Let's get on board with that. That's not what I mean. And so two-eyed seeing is really, truly about setting our egos and our hearts and our ideas to the side to approach our tribal partners and ask them where they want to go. What knowledge would they like to leverage? What is important to them? And then we coalesce around that. There's a lot of wins to be found in that approach. And I've also found that ego can be really hard for all of us. And as much as I pride myself in saying I know how to set my ego aside, I too have one. And sometimes it's difficult to really get over myself, to move forward and get things done. And I can say at the end of the day that two-eyed seeing is really, truly about getting next to each other in a way that achieves two-way dialogue around food, local food, regenerative agriculture, because our tribes have a lot to teach and a lot to offer. And we have to just figure out how to create that pathway towards quality of life and how we can all get along and work with each other next to each other.
Beautiful. Thank you. We have another few minutes here if anybody has comments for one another. All right. Can move on to our almost last
Actually,
question. Oh, no,
sorry.
go ahead. Please
No,
go.
I was just, we haven't discussed the actual part of when I spoke of mind, body, and spirit, talking about, you know, the two-eyed seeing. It's the therapy involved, and how not only just eating the food, the actual of it, the community involvement of it, you know, the village. I don't know. I wanted to at least point that out, that that's a big part of why we kind of did it. You know, the heroes to hives you hear about, you know, so many different groups are out there and slowly developing these programs, is showing people, you know, it's the therapy of seeing the fruit of your labor, runs so deep in the mental health crisis. You know, I feel as though that if people were to take a little bit of part of this right here, you would, you know, there'd be a lot of healing that goes along with it. And then the spiritual healing of farming right there, you know, again, taking the time to, you know, first thing in the morning now, my goal is, I haven't been sleeping much at all. So as soon as the sun gets up, I said, you know, today I'm going to start, I'm going to enjoy this cup of coffee, and I'm going to walk outside, and I'm going to sit there, and I'm going to go walk through my orchards. And I'm actually going to see how beautiful it is. I'm a video, you know, a bee, literally sitting and pollinating my orchard, and just taking a moment to capture that sunrise, capture the beauty of the just the special nature of what I had around me right there. That right there is definitely integrated and part of the food as medicine part of it.
Trevor, I am curious. You said earlier at the very beginning that the tribes are ready to lead. Do they have, and I know that I can look further within the land grants university, and I'll research, but are you aware of any mentorship programs where you have some of these tribal leaders that are working with this concept, specifically the two-eyed seeing concept? Because I think that that's something that I think that we can all benefit from, first of all, but I think that it's an amazing asset and resource to be able to offer to the members of Farmer Veteran Coalition, and then also the ladies in Louisiana Women in Ag. So are you familiar with any type of mentorship opportunities or programs?
Other than what Casey provided us, this is well, it's not a new concept, but it's catching on, and it's spreading, and it's becoming more and more popular. It's been around for a long time, but the actual concept itself as to the two-eyed seeing, I would encourage you to look to the Intertribal Ag Council or the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism. It's called IENTA. I can't ever always get it right. But
You got it right.
Kelly Hepler has been a great resource.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. She was at the Ag Summit in DC where I met Casey and Courtney.
Yeah.
What's the acronym again? Just so I can write it down.
IENTA.
Yes.
And then there's IAC, the Intertribal Agriculture Council.
Okay. Yes.
So between those two organizations, you should be able to find some interconnectivity.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. So this is our last question, and then we have one more after this, but we would love to hear all of you define the theme that we're talking about today. which is business approaches. So what does this term business approaches within food as medicine look like to you? And Lauren, we'd love to hear from you first.
Okay, I'm coming back. Hold on. I'm just trying to get out of the chat. Come on. There we go. Okay. So define business approaches within food as medicine. What does that look like to you? Again, just from an educational background, I think that when you impact change by educating people and helping them to change their perspective, I think that that is one of the most efficient ways. When you show people that food as medicine is something that pertains to them personally or to someone that they care about, I think that that really helps to change someone's perspective. So I think that that all goes back to education and really drilling into your community and the people that are important to you, to know where your food comes from, to know the farmer that is supplying this food to you, to know their growing practices, because you're not just what you eat, you're what your food eats, right? So we need to make sure that we're actually producing the food in a responsible way. And I think that, again, that just goes back to the education standpoint of making this something that is important for people to understand, not when they're sick, before they get sick, to utilize food as fuel so that you don't need medicine. And then when you do get sick, that's your perspective, that's your mindset, that's the way that you think. So instead of running to the doctor and running for a prescription or an antibiotic, you're looking into, okay, well, have I fueled my body? Am I eating enough garlic? What am I doing? You're able to help them think for themselves. And I don't think that that's a business approach. I just think that that's a mindset approach.
Thank you.
And I think that's a good springboard into what I was going to say, which is the business approach for me is through education. Education is, I think, more powerful than legislation or anything else. And one of the things that we're finding in terms of educating people about food as medicine, we've been able to experiment, and the International Agritourism Workshop Coalition could probably tell us more, because they have been working with a tribe that borders on the US and Canada, and they have been able to leverage insurance for fresh produce, fresh foods around this food as medicine conversation. And they've done it on the Canadian side. And now there's a real dialogue. Well, if it can work there, why can't we make it work over here? And we're starting to see more and more interest in how they've made that work and how they've been able to fund that. And it helps everybody. It saves the insurance companies money when people are healthy. It helps us feel better when we're healthy. And as I like to say, healthy communities equal healthy people and healthy economies. And so for me, it's more about education than legislation. But that education piece is where we will get into policy development, changing the rules, and really improving the landscape to create these healthy conversations.
Thank you. Debbie, you're next.
Yeah, we are a business. Lost River is a business, so we have to have some sustainable income and practices. Not that we always have, but ideally. We have moved our Food as Medicine program into a new nonprofit that we formed to give it a little bit more flexibility. And it right now, Food as Medicine programs is driven by grant dollars. And so we always try to think, how can you change that? How can it become part of your stable food system locally? Don't have the answer to that one yet. But it was really interesting. Last week, we were at a rural engagement conference, and one of the sessions was Food as Medicine business practices. So it was your exact topic. And it was a series of questions to a group of people, some of whom knew what it was, some of them were just in the dark. But the very last question was, what would the world look like if you formalized food is medicine in the whole medical scheme of life that we see it. And up on the board, they had like what, for example, if it was Medicare related, or your insurance provider would cover it and stuff like that. And oddly, the whole room went nuts. And they said, wrong question, wrong question. That's already after the problem. And you're trying to fit it into the norm, the normal way that we fund healthcare, which is all wrong all by itself. So what the group decided is, no, you have to go forward to more preventative measures. Some good examples of smoking that for you to change your behavior. They said, how can we learn from some of those kind of programs to really front end this, including food as medicine as the front end of healthy lifestyle. So it was really fun to see a group of people who were really not all that invested in the topic just see it so clearly.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. And Brandon, you are.
This approach has obviously been selling our products as a food product rather than a supplement. And so the marketing, I think marketing is everything, you know, tricking, teaching, showing people that it's not, you know, so our marketing, we go into grocery stores and we do samples. So we're getting lab coats that we're going to be wearing. And I'll have chief pharmacist with an F. And on the front of our kitchen outside, we're going to be making a sign stating, you know, pharmacy technicians only, and welcome to the pharmacy. So again, it's triggering those people's mindset into thinking, what exactly are you eating? And then bringing that to the grocery stores, really selling that to the people, going, you know, I wanted to start doing some social media posts and challenging people to go to their local grocery store and estimate, walk up and down the aisles and take some time and estimate how much of that food in that store is locally grown. Like United States or your state, think of the percentages, you know, think of the number of ingredients. And so through that marketing and the creative marketing and showing people to change that mindset, you know, we're going in there, number one, with the lab coat on and making fun of being a farmer, but really going, this is the true medicine. And then, you know, explaining people through, you know, simple recipes. Like we talked about taking a couple teaspoons of our elderberry juice and put it in a white rice cooker. What would be just a simple starch turns into a vibrant purple, high antioxidant part of your meal. So, you know, showing it as a novelty idea to get kids involved. You know, again, the marketing of it, I wanted to partner with a dairy farm and making a purple milk, you know, and getting it into the schools. One, kids are drinking purple milk. We're adding antioxidants to something that's calcium. We can put, you know, a Purple Heart milk carton on there, and then educate kids on historical Purple Heart recipients within their state. So, you know, really creating that type of business, business within a business, so to speak, of just showing people how it can be used.
Awesome. Thank you all. And we're at our last question, which is more of a request, which is that we'd love to hear a call to action from each of you. Some individual next steps or actions that you would love to see in your specific field or work or life regarding food as medicine. And Trevor, we would love to start with you.
My call to action is really simple. I would like to see more small business owners approaching farms and farmers and ranchers about how to use their foods at a local level, how to create those intersections between small business ecosystems and our local farms and ranches. You know, and I want to encourage my colleagues at land-grant universities to foster those communications. We're in the communities. We're in the trenches. We have to look these people in their faces at the end of the day when that grant doesn't go through, or when that grant does go through, and we have to do the workshops. So from small business owners to land grant educators, I want to encourage more and more people to have these conversations and to push this narrative of food as medicine, eat local first, and to think about our communities, because there's a bigger picture here as we live in a global economy.
Thank you, Trevor. Debbie.
To me, that's easy. It's share food, eat together. And if you can, make sure it's local food on the table. But I have to tell you my elderberry story if I can, because I'm
Yay!
feeling so proud. We're in a very rural, poor area, and so we're under the radar. And we think that's pitiful sometimes, but it's not. It lets you do all sorts of stuff. So we buy Amish elderberries. They have elderberries out their ears. And we didn't know what to do with elderberries. Okay, so we have a big freezer, walk-in freezer. So we just froze tons of elderberries, which are so much fun to deal with then. And then we vacuum sealed all the frozen little elderberries. And then we have a food entrepreneur, a young woman who does a lot of stuff in a certified kitchen across the street from us. And she makes her own elderberry syrup, which we handle at the store and give out all sorts of ways. So we didn't really know what we were doing, but it comes together when not a whole lot of people are watching you. So yeah, thank you, elderberry people. I'm going to tell her your name.
Outstanding.
That's
Thank you, Debbie. Brandon, you're up.
So the call to action is that, you know, I'm waiting on the USDA to define what healthy is. I am not allowed when the health inspector came to do an initial inspection of our commercial kitchen facility. She did not introduce herself. She walked in the door and she said, "You know, you cannot call yourself healthy." I said, "Hi, my name is Brandon." You know, I can quote scientific data showing that my fresh fruit is high in vitamins and nutrients and has got wonderful attributes about that. I said, you know, so the government red tape and the government oversight and overreaching, you know, the amount of red tape it is for me to be able to produce something that is simple, one ingredient, two ingredient item, is absolutely atrocious. The amount of insurance, the amount of fees, the red tape that I had to go through for this one bottle of juice. This is a 188-page safety SOP called a HACCP plan that had to be developed, a hazard analysis and critical control point safety plan. I've got SOP on top of SOP. I had to send that off for a shelf stability test. I had to get a process authority letter from a doctor studying my HACCP plan, validating the HACCP plan. I mean, it goes right back into the whole raw milk world. It's like, when did we get so you know, regulated that I can't grow a fresh fruit, juice it and put it in a bottle and sell it to people without an unbelievable line of permissions and regulations stating that? And why can't I say that it's good for you? She literally said, "Call yourself a supplement. You can make any health accusations you want. I don't have to be here." And I said, "No, it's a fresh fruit. It's a food. And I'm not going to tell people that they need to take a pill or they need to take medicine. I'm telling them this is purely grown, simply grown. It's a simple ingredients there." So basically allow us to just grow good stuff and share. That's the call to action. We do, I want to point out, have an organization that was started down here called Eat Fit. So it is spread through a number of other places, but it's a brand that many of the restaurants and eateries throughout Louisiana now can put on their menus. And it's got a nutritional analysis, and Eat Fit people have to, and the dietitians and nutritionists go through it. But it's an easy way for restaurants to basically say, "Hey, if you want to come out and eat at our restaurant, we've got many items on here that are fresh, local, and are good for you." So it's you know, it's evolving. It's showing up here and there.
Thank you. And Lauren, close us out. Call to action.
Yeah, so I definitely would challenge each and every one of us to lead by example. I know that I find it a lot more cost effective to not shop at local farms. And so I've just challenged myself to do that, whatever we can't kill from what we have here on our property, whether it's harvesting deer, whatever, fishing or different things like that, to go to a local farm, to go to find a local cattleman that processes his own beef. So lead by example. I think all of these are absolutely amazing ideas. I wrote every single one of them down because I want to incorporate them. I want to be a part of the change that I want to see, right? So number one, lead by example, and then always be open to new ideas, because some of these new ideas that we're all thriving on right now used to be the ideals that governed us. And we got so far away from them that we're literally looking at baking your own bread as a new venture. It's not new. Raising your own chickens as something cool and exciting and different and new. It's been around since the beginning of time. So yeah, that's it. Lead by example, and then look for the ideals in the new ideas that you see.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for joining us today. This was a great conversation. Really appreciate having all of you here. I'm going to stop the recording.